Here we go again. Another athlete. I'm sorry if I'm overdoing it with the sports people, but sales seems to attract that type of mindset. And for good reason. When you grow up understanding a game, and sales is a game, it's much more infinite than most games, meaning that you got people, and people typically do things, but they have exceptions. And you also understand there's a winner and a lot of losers. And in sales, either one person wins or nobody wins. And in B2B, often nobody wins, about half the time. A company just decides to do nothing, put it off, or start over, or buy as little as possible. And you have to care, but not care too much. In sports, you always see somebody break down, have a temper tantrum, get hurt, and lose it at some level. And it's understandable, but unprofessional. And in sports, you constantly are getting feedback, and you understand that you're not perfect, that there's always better. So from that standpoint, sports is a good metaphor for becoming great at sales. If you are an academic and you only take tests where things are right or wrong, in sales, that's not really it. It's more of a continuum versus binary. Yes, they either buy or they don't buy, but how well does a sales call go? How well does a demo, a presentation, a conversation? How well do you understand the other person? These are all critical elements of becoming great at sales. So let's get into this interview. I hope everybody's enjoying this series on great people and sales. Check them all out on YouTube. I store the video recording on YouTube. If you see my stuff on LinkedIn, please give it a little like, a little comment, a little share. Just trying to help spread the word about the podcast. Make sure you're checking out the other podcasts, the Sales Leadership Show, Sales Questions. If you just want a quick jolt every day of a question and answer, short form, that's the podcast for you if you just like tips. And B2B Revenue, if you're a leader or want to become a leader, want to hear what great CEOs, CROs, and CMOs are doing today, the B2B Revenue Leadership Show. Here we go. Hey, Joe, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
All right, great. Thanks very much, Brian. So my name is Joe Twer. I'm sales director at BlueSnap. BlueSnap's an all-in-one payments platform, kind of a modern technology solution for companies that are trying to achieve global e-commerce sales success optimizations and don't want to outsource it to guys like Amazon and pay a bunch of money there. So let's see, I guess I've been working at BlueSnap for 8 years. I've been in the banking and fintech space for over 20 years, and happy to be here. Happy to chat with you this morning.
Cool. And you're in a leadership role?
I would call it a team lead role. I guess, it kind of goes back and forth whether I've got a team under me or whether, I've got a big number that I've got to hit and I'm just, heads down trying to execute and move the needle for the company. So it ranges. Now is a very busy time and I'm just, actually, I don't have anybody working for me right at the moment, but we are actively doing a bunch of hiring to bolster the team.
Cool. Do you prefer one or the other, or does it matter? Leadership or?
You know what? It's kind of funny. Over the course of my career, I've had experiences with both. And I think for me personally, I prefer being that individual contributor. Yeah. I think that's where I'm more successful. I think that's where I can make more of a difference. It sounds, I guess, a little bit weird for a guy that could be, my title is director of sales. I mean, I could run a team. I used to run teams, but I find from a combination of ability to close more deals, more bigger, complicated deals, be efficient, which is critical, have kind of good work-life balance. That's, I think, what works best for me.
Yep, cool. And what do you like about sales?
Ah, man, I love sales. I love kind of, I really do love my job. I love the challenge. I love this job. There's such a variety of companies that I get a chance to meet with, understand what they're trying to achieve, what they have in place today with systems. I'm not the typical sales guy, Brian. I'm more of a I definitely have this sort of much more problem solving consultative approach. And I have the balance of technical skills and deep product knowledge and kind of the business acumen and approach. I'm able to do a lot all by myself. I don't have to have kind of a team of sales engineers that working with me. And I guess I just love to spend that time with the discovery and the upfront questions and understand their environment and what they have, and then be able to provide the right solution. And then I'm super competitive. I'm kind of an athlete by nature. I've got that kind of sports. That's my mental health outlet is sports. And so I just want to, win. Win as many deals as I can, and then find these great projects and then clients, and then have those guys introduce me to 6 more of their colleagues.
And what sport was your favorite or best at?
I guess I played tennis in college. Have kind of that tennis NCAA athlete. But I play every sport: volleyball, golf, you name it, ping pong.
But more individual versus team?
Correct. I guess volleyball's team. I do both. I used to went back in the day when, working at different companies, I was the softball coach, and one of my favorite things is having the technical guys from the team within engineering and development that are maybe from India or Pakistan or other places that don't know softball at all or baseball, but they know cricket. And teaching those guys how to have the rules and having them on our team. That was like the greatest thing.
Yeah. And what is it about, or how do you apply the sports analogies to sales? Is it knowing the games you can win, the refusing to lose, the beating the competition?
I would say those. I would say kind of the character building that sports requires, especially in individual sports, whether it's tennis or wrestling or one of those things. Having that drive to be competitive, to outwork your opponent. Those are types of things that I guess are the way I look at things. Brian, I don't know. I try to hire other athletes. I think they're a good fit in sales. Yeah.
They're kind of the athletes of the business world.
Yep.
Right. Because it's a clear objective. You got competitors, if you won or lost. There's no maybe.
That's right. Sales is very black and white. I love that about sales. That's for sure.
And now you went and got an MBA, which is kind of unusual for a salesperson.
Yes. It's funny. My career, I went right from undergrad in sport management to an MBA because I had an opportunity to have the athletic department pay for my college, pay for my degree, which I said that's great. And I expected to then have that turn into a career. But after that MBA, my options were not very good for jobs. So I ended up becoming a tennis pro on Cape Cod. And then I realized, hey, this isn't going to be the right long-term strategy. So I used my MBA to get into banking and banking technology. And then it all morphed into where I am now.
And if a sales rep was to work with you, what would they notice different about you?
I think the thing that is different about me is, so it's like I said before, I've got the combination of the technical and the product knowledge, and then that combined with asking a lot of questions and building up that understanding of the prospect's environment and really what they're trying to achieve. Doing all of that in an efficient and rapid and detailed manner. My expectations are pretty high as far as how you're gonna execute on these things, as far as follow-ups, pricing proposals, solutions documents, things like that. So when you're working with me, it's you gotta, it's the A team. You gotta hit all those marks, hit those details. That's kind of what I try to achieve.
And what type of deal excites you? Is it complexity, logo, deal size, competitiveness of the deal?
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I certainly love the competitive nature of the deal. I think the complexity is probably what I would pick first. I love this idea of, because we're this all-in-one solution, a lot of times, just because of the nature of what we do, companies have implemented multiple payment gateways and systems and integration. So we end up with, it's awesome. You start to list it out and it's like, wait a minute, you guys are paying for managing and maintaining 12 different integrations to support your global online selling channel and CSR channel. That's a lot of work. We can do that with one. So that type of ROI, that type of solving that complex environment is great. Yeah, I mean, those are good. And then the other thing too that I appreciated with your one of your particular guidelines is that, the 80-20 rule, trying to really focus in your attention on, the 20% deals that are going to really move the needle. That's something that I always have to remind myself and do, because I get a lot thrown at me. I think my LinkedIn picture is me juggling balls. I feel like that's what I'm constantly doing, is juggling a lot of balls. And so I can manage a lot of deals all at once, but the trick is making sure that I'm paying attention to the ones that are really going to move the needle. And sometimes I don't do that. I definitely recognize I've got some weaknesses, and that's one of them.
And when you look at that pipeline, how do you prioritize it? Have you?
That's pretty easy. It's like black and white. So it's like, what's the biggest revenue number?
Okay. Yeah, even though the likelihood of closing might be lower?
Well, I mean, I don't, I mean, if it's just a gleam in my eye and I have no kind of traction, warm connection there, then I'll put it into like a nurture track, or, have somebody else on my team try to build up some traction on it until I can get in there and spend the time. It's more like I've got an active pipe of stuff that I'm like really engaged in. Which ones are the ones that are going to move the needle for the company?
Yeah. And what's the persona you're selling to internally? Is it finance, I assume? Or?
It's a combination of three folks, and this is another area where sometimes I screw up and I've got weaknesses. I don't always remember to sort of go deep and wide and up in the organization. But it's a combination of IT, finance, and then usually kind of the P&L group or line of business. Maybe it's somebody who owns the digital channel, or they have a product manager, or they have an e-commerce manager. It depends on the type of company, the size of the company, and how they're structured. So that's the other neat thing about what this job, what I do, is just so many different verticals. It could be automotive, it could be classic manufacturing, it could be higher education or educational technology. I mean, it just it's so fascinating.
And when you either lose or the deal doesn't happen for some reason, how do you react? What do you?
Yeah. I mean, I probably
throw the racket against the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I probably lick my wounds for maybe a little bit of time, 24 hours or something like that. I mean, back in my prior jobs, where I had kind of a finite set of customers and opportunities, And if I spent so much time on it and then ultimately came in second place, that was devastating. I specifically remember there's like one deal in my head that I will never ever forget, and it just still a dagger in my heart today. And just I mean I just made way too many mistakes and did it wrong, and I'll never kind of forget that, Brian. Fortunately, there's so many the pipeline. There's so many deals. You can't stop and get thrown off track where I'm at right now. So yeah, you spend time, do your kind of post-mortem, lick your wounds, try to, I don't know what I do. I guess I do that thing where I've usually built up a strong enough relationship with one person. This is where I screw up sometimes, is I get too single threaded on that one person. Could be in tech, could be on the business side, could be finance. And so I'm like, how could I have done better? And so I try to, cover that off, but move on.
And when you're in these deals, what typically happens to either it stalls or they don't change or they change with somebody else? Have you developed a sense, an acid test, a signal?
Yeah, I mean, I think so it stalls around things like, hey, based on the resources that we have at the company and the fact that what we're talking about to use BlueSnap for, it's not great what we have today, but it's not broken. Yeah. It's not like transactions are coming in. We're still getting paid. It's manually. We're throwing some people at it. There's extra time before it actually hits our GL, hits our bank account, things like that. So it's not broken. Those are some of the challenges I have to constantly overcome. And it's easier when the guy's hair's on fire or he's got like a contract deadline and he hates his current vendor. Like those are easy. Those are like, okay, we just have to line up the pieces, make sure the money works and get it going. It's the ones where I know personally it's a great fit and I want it to happen, and they maybe don't have the time or resources to rip and replace something that is not broken.
And what were some of the epiphanies that you had through your sales career? I mean, because you came from a pretty much not a sales background.
Well, I mean, I had
a business background.
I had the fortunate, because I had this product consulting team and I was, doing kind of that support component of it. In a leadership role, I had the benefit of being involved in some sales training early on in my career. So I did some of that consultative sales training programs, a 2 or 3 day exercise with a wider sales team and the role playing and all of that upfront discovery stuff. Don't fall into that easy mistake of just throwing up on the guy with all of your features and great stuff that you do when it's not going to apply to their what they're trying to achieve or what they care about. My other good epiphanies that I love to still leverage is that classic. You probably know this one, the Ben Duffy story. Do you know Ben Duffy?
No.
So the Ben Duffy story, it goes back to, I think, the time when you had the advertising companies and selling to what do you call it? The tobacco, big tobacco and the cigarette companies. And so Ben Duffy was this creative guy who, when it looked like his sales team had failed, and he went back in to the CEO, and rather than doing kind of a typical presentation, what he did was he sat down in front of them and he said, "I've been thinking about your position, your company, and here's the list of questions that you have probably in your head. Maybe maybe I'm not going to get all of them right, but hopefully a majority of them." And he went down the list of things like, I don't know you. Why is you and your company the right fit for me? What about support? All these different things. So he sort of prepared for all of the anticipated objections, questions, things like that. And then he had answers for all of them. That's always a big thing for me in Epiphany, is just that being prepared and putting yourself in their shoes to really get some of the key points out on the table as part of the meeting. Don't dance around the elephant in the room. And so those are some of the key things. And then I also always, I guess, I'm thinking I've lost the deal. I'm always thinking that what can I do, because I'm going to lose this deal. I'm going to lose this deal. I'm going to lose this deal. So I'm constantly thinking about, all right, how can I do something strategic to get in front of them again, and approach it like that.
Yeah, I think that proactivity, because most reps wait until something goes wrong, that whole objection handling mindset instead of prevention. Because, and sports is a good analogy for that, because you spend 99% of your time practicing.
That's right. It's good.
That
good
one
point.
time playing in a tournament, right? Especially like with tennis. You practice, then you have a tournament that lasts what, half hour?
Well, longer than that usually, but yeah. No, you're exactly right. And it's a combination of that physical and mental practice and being ready. And
right, because a lot of salespeople look at it as more like a test. I either know how to sell or I don't. And it's like, no, it's a lot closer to tennis, where you have to practice, run, do a lot of stuff that doesn't look like it applies to tennis, but it does.
Mm-hmm.
And don't do any of the things that will interfere. Don't go partying the night before. Right. And, get your head in the right space before the tournament. Because you said, you brought up the word golf. It's like it takes 5 minutes to learn how the rules of the game, but it takes a lifetime to become mediocre at it.
Mm-hmm.
And what does everybody do? They do like 3 to 5 practice swings before they swing. And I think like a strategic deal like yours, it's much more strategy than it is, just personality.
It is. I would agree, and I think again, it's kind of that alignment of understanding with the discovery pieces what really is important to them, and getting that down on paper and in front of them on a regular basis. Hey, these are the 4 points that are really why you're going to pick Blue Snap, and that's in line. One of my favorite colleagues is a guy who's so good at sales, and he would get to the point where he'd keep figuring out these issues that the organization had, to the point where like they would be feeling bad about themselves. He'd almost get them to tears. And then he'd keep bringing it up and to the point where you just had to pick his solution, because it was the only thing that they could do, because they were in such a bad state.
And what motivates you more? Is it the desire to win or the hatred of losing?
I'm a positive guy. I guess the desire to win. Yeah.
And that excites you. That gets you going and motivated.
Definitely. Yeah. Yep. Jumping out of bed. Sure.
And what is kind of like we talked about the questions and stuff, but how about like managing your day or your week? How do you, because with all those balls in the air, it's easy for one to fall.
I mean, I guess, playing around with Salesforce and all the different list views that I have in Salesforce, whether depending on where I'm at with things. So is it still in just a lead category, or am I in like kind of that opportunity building pricing proposal phase, or am I in red lines with contracts? So I'm constantly looking at those lists, I guess, Brian, to figure out where am I at, and then how am I going to move this one forward each and every day, every other day type of a thing, without being this like annoying guy to say, hey, do you have any updates for me? Hey, do you have any updates for me? I try not to do any of that. I try to, be more fun and strategic, big thing for me too is cut through the clutter. everybody's got so much clutter in their inbox and their weekly schedule, and I just try to be creative to make it worthwhile to spend time with me, to respond to my emails type of thing, something hopefully that I'm giving you that is relevant, educational, case study that is just like your company, that type of stuff.
So, and when you have to talk to such a broad diversity of people, roles, responsibilities, concerns, how do you keep that straight? Or
yeah, that's one of my favorites. I have this kind of funny thing. So if I have that bigger cross-functional, call it demo, introductory or demo meeting, or you've filled out an RFP and now it's like you get the whole cross-functional team that's ready to like attack you with questions and they want to see it. And I love those meetings. Yeah. And the way I do it is I make sure that I've got my notebook ready. And as we go around the room, or the virtual room, I make sure I know the person's name and their role. Yeah. And so I and then when they ask questions, I address their name, and I always remember, okay, this is Susan from IT, and so she's thinking about it from kind of her IT operations, maybe security, like all the things that she cares about. And it's funny. So I'm great at that in those meetings and, each week during my work week. But when I turn that switch off and I go out like to the neighborhood with my wife, or we go, walk uptown or something like that with my wife, and we see all these neighbors, I'm constantly, you'll laugh at this, I'm constantly like, what's her name again? Who are they? All that sort of thing. Because I have this switch in my head when I'm on and I'm focused on, these 12 folks, a cross-functional, on the phone, or obviously it was way better in person. It's no problem for me. I can remember everybody and what they do and why and stuff like that. When I turn that switch off and I'm walking around, doing landscaping and my neighbors are there, I'm like, what's that guy's name again?
Yeah. It's a good is there a technique that you use?
I don't know what it is. I guess it's just my notebook. I'm like so focused. I'm prepared, like that athlete, right? I'm prepared for, my tennis match. I'm so focused on understanding what are the important things, what are their systems, all that. That when I turn that switch off, I can't remember my neighbor's name sometimes.
And it sounds like you have the ability to be hyper focused and the now as well.
Yes. Yeah. Because I know how important and how impactful having those cross-functional meetings are. Because if I can address the issues and answer questions for each of the cross-functional groups, and then they go away and they talk about, okay, well, this guy, he meets all of these areas of concern, and if we can get the pricing where we want it, then we'll go ahead with, so I know how important that is.
And if somebody internally at your company said, hey, why don't you talk to this rep who's applying and see if you think they're a good rep, not just for your company, what are the couple of things that you look for?
Yeah, I do that all the time. Spend time with potential reps, or my own new kind of hires across the team. I ask them things like, "Hey, how are you managing your day to day and your week? Let's walk through some of your deals and think about how you're thinking of them from a strategy perspective." Yeah. Making sure that they've got kind of the blocking and tackling stuff down too, because I find sometimes sales folks, they're not, like, believe it or not, they don't have the good kind of organizational skills that you need to. It's just kind of like, all right, I'll hopefully they'll call me back, or I don't know. So focusing in on how they're going to strategically stay in touch and move the ball down the field on their deals, how they're going to find new deals and partners and things like that.
Do you find many people don't have a strategy? They just have a response to things. They're not thinking through the whole game.
Yep.
They're just playing it as it hits them.
Right. Right. So I think depending on where you came from with you could be somebody new out of school, you could be somebody who's been in sales for a long time. Um, they're a lot of times they haven't had the benefit of kind of some sales training
Right.
and some guidelines about how to, especially in the world of enterprise software sales, which I would consider, where you've got to have a good handle on your own product and what differentiates it, how you can explain it in a clear and crisp fashion that's applicable to that prospect. Um, in addition to the fact that they don't have kind of that whole sales trajectory and strategy of what it takes to close that deal.
Yeah.
How to build up um, advocates within the organization, how to not get single threaded within an organization, all of those different facets.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, Joe, I appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
They can go to bluesnap.com. There's a talk to sales on bluesnap.com. They can hit me up on my LinkedIn. I've got Twitter, which is Joe T by now. So a variety of different ways to connect with me, I guess.
Where sales differs from sports is that it's not easy to practice at sales. It's not easy to get coaches. It's not easy to get feedback, see alternatives, have somebody mentor you, have somebody to talk to, somebody to reflect on a certain approach, somebody to help you break through a stumbling block in your career. That's why I started the courses. There's two major ones. One for getting into accounts, called Start the Conversation, Get the Meeting. And the premise is move away from commercials, because that's what a pitch is. That's what a cold call is. That's what a spam email is. It's about you and begging for time and just to give them another commercial. Start the Conversation, Get the Meeting takes your game to the next level. It really is based off of science, neuroscience, that I kind of evolved and adapted to sales about 7 years ago. And I've been teaching it ever since. And it's a step-by-step process to build a genuine conversation about the other person. Nobody really teaches us how to do that. What do? We talk about us. We pitch. We build our commercial. We've been raised on commercials. We see them on TV, listen to them on the radio and podcasts all the time. But are you really interested in them? Once in a while, sure, it might hit something. And that's the approach. And now we adapted that approach to sales and B2B sales, where it's less and less effective. And what ends up happening? People start doing more and more of it. So it has this spiral down. Yet everybody loves to talk. Everybody loves to connect with other people, like-minded people. So how do you build that conversation? And I ask you, when I do my 15-minute calls, how many net new outbound cold meetings do you get a week? And 1 to 2 is the normal thing. I don't mean a pitch. I don't mean a cold call where you get somebody on the line. I mean a conversation of substance. 15, 30 minutes with a stranger talking about what they care about. And they're like one, and I think they're exaggerating. I talk to managers, and when they outsource it to a service, they pay starting at $250 to get an appointment. Now, that doesn't mean the person's in market. That doesn't mean the person is interested. That means the person's just willing to sit through your demo or your presentation. And you don't know anything about them. So the course, if it gets you two meetings in 1 year, it pays for itself. I've got people in the course getting 10 to 20 a week with their target market. And they're just becoming available to people becoming part of their network, becoming known to them, having great conversations. Are they all qualified? No. Are they all interested? No. Can they? Maybe. Yeah, some of them can. Well, let's say only half can. Imagine what your pipeline would look like. Start the conversation, get the meeting is a game-changing course. And the hardest part is just changing your viewpoint on talking to strangers. So you have to find the people most likely to have the problem you solve. That seems logical. You don't want to talk to people who are least likely to have the problem. And get away from talking about you. That's a shift. It's not easy, but it has to be done. Because if you think sales is having a hard time, marketing is having a miserable time. I talk to CMOs all the time. And the cost per commercial is going up. The effectiveness of the commercials is going down. The pressure's going up. You think we're in a perfect storm. They're miserable. Because everyone's copying each other, doing the same thing. Nobody seems different. It's all about them. Check out that course. Start the conversation, get the meeting. Now, the payment terms, you can buy it all at once, have access to it for a year, or you can make 12 monthly payments. But it's a payment plan. It's not a subscription. And somebody asked, well, why do you have no cancellation or refunds? This is a purchase, and I want people to be serious about it. If you dabble with it, it's not going to work. You got to kind of dig in. And most people in the course, it takes about a month before they start to see the light. And most of that's because they're resisting. They're not buying into it. They're like, oh, I jumped that step. Well, if you jump that step, you don't get the benefit of that step. So that's kind of the model. I want to make it affordable for individual reps. I get a lot of people, hey, can you send me an invoice and I'll get it through? It's like, no, just sign up. And people managers want their team to take it, but they want me to do all the entertainment part of it. The thing about being a rep is, it'd be nice if it was Netflix. It's the availability of Netflix, but you don't listen to the glamorous movie stars. You listen to me, but it's talking about the thing that matters most to you. Meetings and deals. That's why you're in sales. You're not in sales to get rejection. You're in sales to get meetings and deals. The other course works the same way. You get access to it for 12 months. You can pay all at once or in 12 monthly payments. You can't cancel it. I don't give refunds because I don't want dabblers. I don't want tourists. I want people who are bought into it. But Brian, I don't know if I'm bought into it. I understand. Go to YouTube. I have an overview video which is pretty much answers all the questions that I typically get on the 15-minute call, seeing if it's a good match. The people it's a best match for are, you have to be really into B2B, business to business. If you're selling a car, I think the closest on the B2C side would be like a house where there's multiple decision makers, multiple sales calls, lots of choice, a large dollar amount, a lot at risk. And the nature is for the deal not to happen. Now, in real estate, if somebody's moving, they're going to buy something or rent something. But if they're just a little unhappy with their current house and they're dabbling in the market, they might just stay in their current house because it's a lot of work. So that's the ideal customer profile for the course. If you're still not sure, schedule a 15-minute call, listen to more podcasts, and if the reps sound like the people like you like to be like, the market, and if it makes sense, if you get 2 net new meetings, the start the conversation, get the meeting course will pay for itself. And if you can't get 2 net new meetings in 12 months, there's something wrong. Winning the complex sale, let's say you're at 5% commission, okay? So you have to sell $20K additionally per year. If you can't sell an additional $10K in 12 months, there's something seriously wrong. So decide, do you want to take your game to the next level, or do you want, I'm going to save money and wait another year, Brian, I'll show you. Okay, you can do that. But I'm here to help. And I want to see reps understand what they're up against. I talk to a lot of sales enablement people, and they say, well, if reps don't know it by now, it's not just knowing. It's doing before it needs to get done. It's that preparation, knowing the traps you're going to fall into, preventing those traps. And you're not going to learn that until you fall in the trap or somebody convinces you that the trap is going to be there and you're going to fall into it. You can't avoid all of them, but you can't avoid most of them. It's your wallet, it's your income, it's your life. You spent 4 years and a lot of money getting a college degree. How far did it get you? Spend a little bit more to become great at the profession that you've chose. Invest in yourself. You're the most valuable asset you'll ever have. More than your house, more than your portfolio. It's you. You're the means of production. Oil it up. Smarten it up. Sharpen it up. Go to b2brevenue.com. Check out the show notes below. And if your manager won't pay for it, say, will you pay for half? But don't wait, because you can't get this time back. Everybody thinks, I'll wait and see. But time waits for no rep. That's it. We'll see you next time. Tell a friend about the show. Make sure you're checking out the other podcasts, Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers, the Sales Leadership Show, and B2B Revenue Leadership.